Hello and welcome to the Bucket Lister podcast. Join your host Keith Crockford along with special guests who have travelled the world, here to share stories of their adventures and plenty of inspo to add to your bucket list. Now, let's get into today's episode.
Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of the Bucket Lister podcast. I am back today chatting with one of our guides, Gareth Chalker. Hello Gareth.
Hello Keith.
Nice to have you back on again. It was a few weeks ago we did that podcast and we went through Mira Peak and we said we were going to be coming back and having a chat about Island Peak.
Yes.
So, Island Peak, Gareth.
Yes.
You like Island Peak, don't you?
Yeah, it's good. I like it a lot.
When we first did Island Peak, we did it as just an Island Peak trip, didn't we? The first ever trips we ever did.
Yeah.
And then we changed it and did Everest Base Camp and Island Peak. And I think the reason why we changed it was because, A, it was kind of good for acclimatisation.
Yeah.
And also, I think people have Everest Base Camp in their bucket list. They want to tick that off.
And why are you just around the corner?
Exactly. Why because so realistically, you're not going to go and do a Everest Base Camp trick and then
you're gonna go back and do something bigger and better, aren't you?
Yeah. So that's kind of really why we put them together and turned it into one trip. And actually, it doesn't really add on too much extra.
Adds a day or two.
Yeah.
Which, saving yourself 12 days in the long run, aren't you, going back to base camp if you were going to go back to it? So
yeah, and I think it's kind of quite nice as well in respect of coming back. You're doing something different on the way down, aren't you? Because we trek the normal route to base camp.
Yep. Same
as everybody else does. Get to base camp and then you make your way back down to Chukung. And then
you go back to Dingboche, up to Chukung. You have like a rope training day at Chukung. And then, you go up to base camp, more ropes, up to the summit.
How high is Island Peak?
6,182, 85.
So, I mean, it's kind of like that next step on, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you've done Kilimanjaro and you want to kind of do a 6,000 metre peak, then Island Peak is one of those that I feel appears on people's lists. It's kind of like...
It's only a couple hundred metres higher than Kili, but I think gets a whole load more adventure through the longer trip and also that little bit of fixed rope at the top.
It's just like that next step into mountaineering, isn't it? I think,
a bit of snow on.
And we had that conversation about, we did the one on Mira Peak and, that's classed as... And as we said in that episode, that is Nepal's highest trekking peak.
Yep.
It doesn't, there are no real additional skills needed for Mira Peak, or those that you do need can be taught
very quickly.
Would you class Island Peak as a trekking peak?
It's permitted as a trekking peak.
I didn't ask that question.
Yeah, I know, yeah. No, yeah, I think it's as simple of a climbing peak as you'd get. I think don't go there getting fooled by the fact that they call it a trekking peak. You're expected, there is 250 metres of fixed line climbing to get onto the summit, which is a brilliant way of finishing a mountain.
Yeah.
This little knife edge ridge at the very top of the big ice wall.
And I know it changes year on year depending on the state, but there's ladders.
I've never had ladders on it.
Have you not?
No.
I've gone up the head wall on the ladder. That was
No, I've not had ladders on it, but depending on the ice conditions, the lines move a bit.
Yeah.
So it used to go like plumb line straight up to the summit. I think as the ice is deteriorating, unfortunately, as the climate's changing a little bit, they're having to move it further and further along the ridge. So you do get quite cool, say, Gocky, nearly ridge that you kind of walk up. You go up a big head wall and then walk along this ridge to the summit. Makes you feel like a hero. You're taking the last few steps onto the summit.
So obviously, in terms of we're going to Everest Base Camp first.
Yep.
Generally, quite often, you'll be with another team sometimes as well. Like sometimes we will have an Everest Base Camp group.
So you trek alongside another group.
So we're trekking alongside another group. Generally, our Island Peak groups are smaller than our normal EBC groups in general. I mean, this year was slightly different because we had the catch up of COVID, so we did have a pretty full team going out.
Yeah, I'd say they're smaller teams, but definitely growing as well. It's growing in popularity.
Yeah, I think so, definitely. Because again, I think
more people are interested in it as well.
And I think people are like, well, whilst I'm going out there, why don't I?
Yeah.
For an extra couple of days, why don't I climb a mountain at the same time?
Yeah, exactly.
That I'm there. So you follow the normal Everest Base Camp trek.
Yep.
So you're flying to Lukla. I mean, we had that conversation about Ram Chat the other day on the Mira Peak one, so we won't repeat that. But if you haven't listened to that episode yet, pop back a few weeks ago and check out mine and Gareth's chat on Mira Peak, because we did explain about what's going on with the Lukla in Ram Chat Kathmandu flights at the minute. And then from there, we're either going to go so we'll land in Lukla, start the trek straight away, Monjo or Fat Ding, depending on what time how late we fly in. How late we fly in.
Yeah.
Up to Namche, 2 days there. Yeah. 2 nights in Namche, and then on to Dingboche to the monastery.
Yeah.
Dingboche to Dingboche.
Yeah. To Rams.
And see our good friend Ram in Dingboche. And I think that's it, isn't it? I mean, we use the same tea houses.
Yeah.
And, we know the tea houses now. Like, we know the areas we're going to. And I do, and I think as well, because
we get looked after well at them.
We get looked after really well. And I think it's one of those things of having the UK guides on the trips as well. I think, we're Facebook friends with them all. Like, they'll send us messages. Like, they're really looking forward to seeing us. I mean, the lady that owns the one in Lukla that we stay in, like she could not be any more helpful if she tried, could she?
She's great, isn't she? If you need a flight, she's the.
I mean, she's in that airport in the morning, and she is like, she is working for our group. Yeah. I mean, we just stay in her tea house, but she leaves with us in the morning. If we've got to be there at 6 o'clock.
She'll be checking in with us, won't she?
She's checking in. She's making sure that we've all Same with Ram. Like, obviously, this year Ram was.
He's businessman now. He's in charge of base camp at Island Peak.
He's in charge of base camp at Island Peak, which we've known Ram for years and years, and he's now taken on that extra responsibility, which is again great for our groups.
Made sure we got prime spot, prime hire kit when we were out there last time. Made sure we had all the best stuff, but made sure we looked after on the mountain, best Sherpas as well.
Yeah,
good egg.
And then so we have 2 days in Dingboche, or 2 nights in Dingboche.
2 nights in Dingboche. Bit of rope training there normally as well.
Yeah.
So we go out the back of the tea house. No one's expected to know all the rope work when they turn up, so it'll all be taught on the trip. So
and in terms of kit then, for what we'll need for Island Peak, so you'll have your normal EBC trekking kit, yeah. Same as if you were going to do an Everest Base Camp trek, and then there's a few additional bits that you're going to need.
Yeah, you spend 2 nights in a tent at IP base camps. You need a good warm sleeping bag. You need mountaineering boots. We spoke about them for Mera Peak, but the Nepal, La Sportiva Nepals are the ones that I wear, and they're fine for Island Peak normally. Pair of mountaineering crampons, a little bit of climbing kit. You need a harness and a jammer, and a
helmet,
yeah,
and a few carabiners in some prusik cord as well, and a figure of 8.
Yeah.
For coming back down. So, I mean, like I say, and we said this in the Mera Peak one, like, if this is stuff you are never going to use again, some of that kit, i.e. the harness, the helmet,
hiring it out there.
You can hire that out there, or you can hire that from us as well and take it out with you. But for that sort of stuff and to keep the weight down, you're actually better off hiring that out there, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. And I know we spoke on Mera Peak about hiring boots in Kathmandu, but because we know Ram out on Island Peak, we get all the good kit. He holds it back for us. I was video calling him this time, making sure, no, not those boots, like the good ones. Put them aside for us. And he puts it all aside, so we got the best kit. So,
and that's what we want from a trip, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, that's to have that relationship and to be able to sort everything before we even get in country. Yeah, that's super important for us to make sure that we've got everything we need.
Fills us with confidence, doesn't it? So.
Oh, completely. And also as well, it fills the clients and our customers with confidence as well, because it's everything's all been sorted for them beforehand. So Dingboche for a couple of days, then we're heading to Loboshe,
Gorokshare, and Base Camp.
Those that want to can climb Kalapatar, and then from there we're going to end up then departing potentially from those that are just doing Everest Base Camp.
So we retrace our steps to Dingboche. That's probably where we'll say bye to a regular base camp trek.
Well, when we get down the bottom of the
Tokla Pass,
then one goes right, one goes left, and we carry on back up over the hill and down the other side back to Dingboche again, don't we? Where the rest of the group head on down to Ferrochet and through Ferrochet and back that way. Yeah. So talk us through then what happens from when you get back to Dingboche, and then let's just look at the island peak part of the trip.
So obviously I said the first time we're in Dingboche on the acclimatisation days on the way up, we'll do a day's rope practice, and we stay there again on the way back. And when we come back, we'll do a thorough kit check. We get everyone to get their sleeping bags out.
And what sort of stuff are you doing in that rope practice training, just in case people wanted to research it beforehand or try and teach themselves?
The rope system you're using out there is called fixed lining. So the rope is attached to the mountain. It doesn't move. It's like a rope that you might abseil down. And you have a thing called a jammer or an ascender, which you put onto the rope, you push it up the rope, and it won't slide back down. It's got these little teeth. I think like imagine like shark's teeth. It'll bite the rope so you can't slide back down the rope. And every now and then this rope might be attached to the mountain just to change direction, or just to, that one's not long enough to go all the way, so they have to put in what they call a re-belay. And you just learn to pass a re-belay, which is really simple. You use a carabiner to attach yourself to this re-belay and replace your jammer onto the new rope above it, and then carry on. It's very...
So basically, you're never not attached to something.
No, exactly. You're always attached to the mountain at least twice. And it's just showing people how to do that, which is very easy to pick up.
And then abseiling wise?
Teaching them how to go down a rope. It's pretty simple, again, straightforward. And on summit night, if people are nervous about it, we're really well staffed on Island Peak. I think when we went up in the autumn just gone, we had 12 clients and I think about 8 staff. 8. Myself and climbing Sherpas, there's about 8 of us. Which are pretty good ratio. It feels like someone always stood next to you, basically.
So, from Dingboche then, you're then climbing up, or you're
to Chukung.
Trekking up to Chukung.
Yeah. Which is your last night in a tea house before you get to Island Peak Base Camp the following day. And that'll be a night under canvas, night in a tent. We get the opportunity to do another day's rope training, or afternoon's rope training, at both Chukung and Island Peak Base Camp. So you've had about 3 days of it by that point. And it'll be an early night at Island Peak Base Camp. We started about midnight, I think, in the autumn. Summited at about 8:30 in the morning.
So it's a long
summit night.
You're talking
it's
like
Achilles summit night.
Achilles summit night. Yeah,
it's pretty similar to Achilles summit night, but more fun, less suffering, more smiling.
And how would you compare then? Because we didn't really, when we did the Mera Peak podcast a few weeks ago, we didn't really compare the two treks very much, or the two climbs very much. How would you compare the two summits from Island Peak and Mira Peak?
Mira Peak's a long plod. It's great, brilliant views, but it is just a long wander up a glacier, which is perfect if you don't want to get too involved with any technical skills. It's just walking up a glacier. Island Peak, it starts very similar, I'd say, to Kilimanjaro. You're kind of fighting your way up, steep scree, until you get to crampon point. It's normally about sunrise you get to crampon point. From there you'll be putting your crampons on and you're walking across a glacier. But it's a bit more of a dramatic glacier. It's a bit steeper. There's some pretty cool ice formations you kind of walk in and around. And then you got this big ice wall at the top to climb to drop onto a really small summit. I haven't climbed Island Peak since before the pandemic. And like my recollection of it was like, yeah, the summit's fine. You could get like a decent sized group on the summit, and it was a lot smaller than I remembered. It's quite good fun, all juggling around each other.
And this season was quite busy, wasn't it, on Island Peak?
Yeah.
Do you think that was because of the pandemic and like it having no traffic for the last 2 years? So everyone was
definitely. I think there's definitely a backlog of people that have wanted to be climbing it. Like we see on our trips, people from the pandemic have obviously been postponed to climb this year. All the other companies are going through the same as us. So yeah, it was a bit busier than normal. But all the teams there work together. They're all communicating and they all manage it. So you're giving each other enough time and space to not be on each other's toes too much.
And then obviously you've summited back down. What's the process for back down then? So
from there we it's abseiling back down the ice wall. I think my group did it in about 4 abseils. And the way we manage that is basically like a bit of a sandwich. There'd be myself or a Sherpa go down first. There'll be a Sherpa at the top attaching the clients to the rope, basically sending you down the rope to me. You'll be in control of your own descent, but because there's a competent staff member, if you like, at the bottom, we can keep you safe as well. We kind of help you with it. It means when you get to the stance, the relay on the way down, we'll help you get attached and safe at the bottom as well. And we kind of like, it's like slinky, I guess, like switching end over end over end, flipping over all the way down.
Yeah. And obviously then it's the same trek back.
Yeah.
Down to Lukla.
Yeah, exactly. So we normally try and get another night in Namche, so you can have a bit of a celebration night in Namche.
Because on our Everest Base Camp trek, we tend to take a slightly different detour on the way back down, so it's not quite the same
through
path.
Kumjung on the way home.
So through Kumjung, have a night in Kumjung, whereas on the Island Peak one, we tend to stop back in Namche.
Straight down to Namche, good night out in the Irish bar.
Yeah.
Party.
Take the porters in the...
Yeah, again, take all the boys out. Normally get locked out the tea house.
Yeah, because that's the only thing in it. The tea house is shut at 10.
Yeah.
But again, because we always use the same tea house.
We know which room doesn't have a lock on the window.
Yeah. Or one of our guides has a secret way of getting in as well to allow us to stay out. But which, you kind of, as long as you're respectful and you go back and you're not loud when you get back into the tea house.
They fully expect it, don't they?
Yeah.
They know it happens.
Yeah, exactly. And, the guy wouldn't have the Irish bar if everyone had to be in bed by 10 o'clock, would he? He never shuts at 10 o'clock. So people
apparently they'll now accommodate people in the Irish bar if it gets too late.
Yeah, he's got rooms in the Irish bar now. So
yeah, and
so we've chatted about kit. There's not a great deal extra you need in terms of like you say, most of that you can hire while you're out there. What would you say then to people if they're toying with the idea of either Mira Peak or Island Peak? What advice would you give those people?
I'd say it depends what their ambitions are, where they want to go. we see like a lot of people will want to go bigger, better in the future. I'd maybe point them towards Island Peak, where it's a little bit more technical, kind of feels a bit more out there on the summit, like for going up those big fixed lines. And, like people that are going to be going to North Wales and going over Crib Goch at the weekends and going up Trivan, like Island Peak's a trip for them. If they're maybe not so keen on the idea of all the technical climbing, then Mera Peak's the one to go to.
And obviously, I suppose if you've already done Everest Base Camp before,
I suppose I should say that would be the one to do first, wouldn't it? Yeah, do Mera Peak, then do Island Peak afterwards. Yeah, do both.
Yeah, but if you've already done Everest Base Camp, then then I would potentially suggest going and doing Mera Peak. Yeah, actually to go and see a different part of the Himalayas, really.
Yeah, Hinku Valley.
Yeah. I mean, both of them are amazing treks, aren't they? I mean, but it's always a really difficult one, isn't it? Because there are so many other great treks and climbs around the world. And, how many times do you want to fly into Lukla Airport? That's kind of... I mean, it's a bit different for us who are going there a couple of times a year every year. But, if you've already been there and you've done that, the world is a very big place, and there's some very big mountains and other places to go and explore.
Yeah, definitely. South America.
Yeah, but even like Pakistan now, and if you like the Himalayas, there are other parts of the Himalayas to go and explore. Yeah. I mean, I think from my perspective, if you've been to EBC and you haven't done Island Peak when you went there in that way, then I would probably say Mera Peak would be the one to go and do. But if you haven't done Everest Base Camp before, well, then definitely tag on Island Peak.
Two birds in one stone, aren't you? So, yeah.
I think that's kind of how I would advise it in terms of it's always a difficult one though, isn't it? Because some people love Nepal and they just want to do everything Nepal has to offer. I mean, we don't run.
Some clients go back again at the end, don't they?
Yeah, and which is brilliant. And we've got clients who have done base camp, and they've gone back and done Annapurna and gone to a different region and seen, because that's a completely different view in itself as well.
Different views, different people. Though partly people are like we are in the UK.
Yeah,
different cultures at different parts of Nepal as well, aren't they? Very Buddhist up in the Everest region.
Yeah, and I love Nepal. It'd be one of those countries I think where if someone ever said to me you could only ever keep visiting one country again, where would you go? Yeah. Nepal would be high up on that list of places I would be considering. I think at that
definitely.
point. Well, Gareth, again, thank you ever so much for coming on and talking about Island Peak. Again, I'll put a link to the Island Peak trek in the show notes so you can have a look at it. If you've got any questions or you want to have a chat with me or Gareth and go through the trips and ask,
I'll talk about mountains all day.
Yeah, exactly. Gareth, he will keep going and going. So if you do want to have a chat with one of us, then if you just email into the office, and then they can the office will arrange for either Gareth or myself to give you a call back, and we can kind of give you specific advice, I suppose, because everyone's different, aren't they? Everyone wants to get something different out of it.
What do you want from the trip? We'll tell you which one's gonna.
Yeah, what your experience is already. So there are so many factors to take into consideration when you are choosing a trip like this next level of trip. I would say it's stepping up to that next level, isn't it? And and I suppose the next level after that, which we'll have to do a podcast on one day, would be like Aconcagua or Amadablam or So it's very, you can see very next steps in terms of the trip. It's a complete progression.
You can draw a progression through the trips, which is ideal if you want to go bigger and better. There's a pathway.
There's a pathway in there. You can start off with Mount Toopkal at 4,000 metres.
Kili,
Everest Base Camp. and it just goes on and on from there. But Gareth, again, thanks ever so much
thanks for having me.
No problems at all. Thank you everyone for listening. We hope you have found this useful, and I do enjoy these podcasts where we're bringing the guides in to talk about the trips, because I think we've done them multiple times, and it just, we can just go into so much detail. We could probably keep talking
talking all day about it.
Yeah, exactly. But we don't want that, because we don't want to bore people, Gareth. But anyway, thank you ever so much. We hope we hope you enjoyed it, and we'll speak to you next week when we do our next episode. Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Bucket Lister podcast. Be sure to click follow to be alerted for next week's episode. For more travel inspiration, check us out at www.thebucketlistcompany.co.uk or follow us on socials. See you next time.